Norby, and we're here today to honor and celebrate the life of my beloved husband, Lynn Charles Norby. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to tell you a bit about him now. Someone once said, "I love people who have no idea how wonderful they are and just wander around making the world a better place." To me, this sums up so clearly my 70 years of memories of Lynn, memories filled with multiple examples of a complex but joyful man who filled our life together with laughter and happiness. Here's just one example of that. When we were house-sitting the Tridelt House at WSU one summer, I received a shockingly pornographic phone call, something I had never encountered before. When I described this horrifying new experience to Lynn, he asked, "Have you never received a dirty letter either?" To which I replied forcefully, "No, never." A couple of days later, I received in the mail an envelope with no return address. When I opened it, this is what I saw. "Dear Janet, dirt, 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 dirt. Your friend, Lynn." Now, while that little story might seem like a trivial way to begin my precious memories of Lynn, the brilliant, loving, and cheerful man whom I was so blessed to have as my husband for 68 years and 10 months. What I'm hoping to do today is to reveal to you how his ever-present smile and humor were the outward evidence of something much deeper, something he discovered when he did his doctoral research into values and how they affected learning. What he learned was that his highest held value, the one that had the most profound effect on all of his responsibilities to life, both consciously and unconsciously, was a terminal value labeled cheerfulness, the desire to increase the sum of joy and happiness in the world. So now, I'd like to share with you some examples of what I saw over the years that seemed to bear out Lynn's dedication to that value. One thing I saw was a man who clearly chose opportunities to build up, not to tear down. It was just such a choice that led him early to the profession of masonry, to the opportunity to build with brick and stone. Lynn began his career in building as an untrained hod carrier, but soon progressed to helping build masonry walls, then fireplaces, and later small churches. His career reached its pinnacle when he was charged with completing the work of this beautiful church, but concluded sadly shortly after he mounted this impressive Vermont marble cross at the top of its steeple. It concluded because the construction market plummeted, building slowed, and Lynn was forced to abandon this fulfilling career to seek a secondary one. Fortunately, when masonry work had been made scarce by freezing winter temperatures, Lynn had used his idle time to seek a degree in education. So now, having acquired sufficient credentials, he was able to secure a position as a teacher, thus beginning a new career that would last for 38 years and provide him with teaching experiences spanning from second grade to university, a career that allowed him to discover challenging and rewarding new opportunities to continue as a builder, although in vastly different ways from his prior experience. Lynn, a scholar himself with a profound love of learning, soon found himself seeking the means to build a similar love of learning in his students by making learning welcoming, non-threatening, and accessible. As one means of accomplishing this, he developed a spiral curriculum in science, extending from primary grades through senior high school. This program was designed to teach simple, concrete science concepts in the very early grades, and then to enlarge and build upon these basic concepts at each succeeding school level. His intent was to build in students a solid lifetime knowledge and understanding of science, as well as to build a familiar and appropriate background for the advanced senior high science courses which Lynn taught, such as chemistry and advanced organic chemistry. As a teacher, Lynn never saw his students as empty vessels into which he would pour information. He saw them as fellow human beings deserving of respect and compassion, whose lives he might be able to enrich with the gift of knowledge. In response to a 2018 award from former students, Lynn made these remarks. "If I did have a positive impact on the students I taught, it was because of the general philosophy of achievement that both the school district and I held. To summarize my beliefs, there are always two curricula being taught in schools at the same time. One is the overt curriculum, designed and taught consciously from textbooks, lectures, and activities. The other is called the hidden curriculum, which is a far more subtle but powerful instructional force that is often provided unconsciously and which is the most difficult of all to manage. The hidden curriculum consists of attitudes and responses to students and teachers based upon the school's philosophy, as well as upon teachers' attitudes toward their colleagues and their students, and upon students' attitudes toward each other. It is critical that teachers like and respect their students if they are to provide positive instruction. The teacher's attitudes toward a class, the individual students in the class, and their responses to students in informal contacts such as occur in the hall between classes are all highly significant. If the instruction provided by the hidden curriculum is predominantly negative, it will have negative effects upon learning and achievement. Both of these curricula, the overt and the hidden, are important, and they must reinforce each other in a positive way. Although Lynn never lost his love for masonry, he was to find building through education vastly satisfying, clearly offering multiple opportunities to pursue goals that could lead to the increase of the sum of joy and happiness. But I also saw during those years a man who chose not only to build, but who also chose to preserve and to beautify. Early in our marriage, at a time when all that was modern was valued and all that was old was considered disposable, Lynn looked for ways to preserve the creativity of those who had preceded us. He joined with me as we scoured secondhand stores and yard sales to locate and preserve the creative handwork of the past. Creative handwork such as Norwegian Hardanger embroidered linens, such as an exquisite 1870 Chinese embroidered screen, and handsome wooden pieces that were then being abandoned as junk when they couldn't compete in desirability with the newer plastics. Later, when we moved to Corbin Park, Lynn helped form and lead a group for several years whose goal was to preserve the area as it had been originated by D.C. Corbin when the original Fairgrounds racetrack was converted to a park and the area surrounding it platted to complement it. One of that group's goals was to help preserve the beauty of the tree-lined surroundings of the Corbin Park community. Their work to lead ultimately to the beautiful double row of sugar maples that surround the park today. Other of their work to preserve was to result in the first recognition of the park area as historically significant when it was first placed on the State Historic Register in 1978. Then, too, Lynn taught himself the multiple skills he needed to preserve and restore our architecturally designed new home on the park. In that process, he learned for the first time to repair collapsing plaster, to wallpaper, to install a complete electrical service, and to add the multiple additional features required to restore and preserve the home. He demonstrated his desire to beautify in many ways as well, One of these was by creating beautiful examples of the practical art of knotting, macrame, as practiced by mariners on the ancient sailing ships. Another way was by designing the gates to accompany the lovely iron fence he arranged to have built for us by the talented and outstanding worker in iron Greg Check. In addition, Lynn had chosen from childhood to work toward becoming the astonishingly skilled classical pianist I knew. The beautiful premiere by Chopin that was playing as you arrived today was something I have heard Lynn play many, many times, and always with great joy. Hearing it again today seemed to me like a lovely echo from a precious past. All of the piano that you hear today is what Lynn played, what I listened to him play. In addition to all these behaviors that illustrated his very positive motivation toward reaching his primary value, you remember, that was to increase the sum of joy and happiness in the world. Lynn also demonstrated many times that his desire was not just for himself, but for all. When I failed to take my amateur painting of portraits seriously, Lynn had some of my paintings framed and hung on the wall, an act that changed my life to let me put aside my feelings of inadequacy and just find happiness in the creativity. When I needed an accompanist, Lynn put aside his own musical prominence to provide that for me. When my father, a builder of furniture well into his 90s, needed tools or someone to provide him with materials, Lynn was always available. As a consequence, my father built this furniture for us for our dining room. In addition, Lynn served as a willing and perceptive aid for years to my family and to his, and he did that cheerfully and of his own volition. I could continue with multiple other examples of Lynn's motivating force, such as the many times he purchased meals for those who needed them, but I suspect I've made my point and demonstrated just how clearly he was driven by that unrecognized terminal value he had discovered, to increase the amount of joy and happiness in the world. But before I end, I'd like to make clear that it wasn't my intention to portray Lynn as perfect. He was human. He made mistakes and failed in his intentions at times. But I hope I have shown clearly that he was a good man motivated all his life by a desire to make the world a better, a happier place for all. And now, having told you about his skill as a pianist, I'd like to conclude with a recording of Chopin's Revolutionary Etude, the first piece I ever heard him play.